Our next special set, Shrouded Fable, launches on Thursday, August 1st in Pokemon TCG Live. Despite being a special set, which means you won't be able to buy booster boxes in real life, Shrouded Fable will have its own battle pass in Live, presumably offering up Pecharunt EX and Kingdra EX decks for free. Shrouded Fable will include more than 95 cards before secret rares, including 3 new Ace Specs, 5 Pokemon EX, and 1 Terra EX in a Lightning Reverum. Thanks to the reveal of Japan's Night Wanderer set, which comes out on June 7th, we know most of the cards coming in Shrouded Fable. Though it is worth noting that Night Wanderer is only 64 cards, which means there's 30-ish other cards coming in Shrouded Fable. But enough boring stuff, let's take a look at the most noteworthy cards coming in Shrouded Fable thanks to translations from Pokebeach and proxies from PokemonProxies.com. We'll kick things off with the grass Pokemon. Easily the most interesting one is Dartrix, which features the United Wings attack. Not only is it a grass attacker, allowing United Wings to hit Charizard EX for weakness, it just adds more Wangs to boost the damage you can deal. Now, with every single Wang in the discard pile, Ditto can copy Murkrow's attack and deal 320 damage. And that's before Maximum Belt or Defiance Band or Choice Belt or Vitality Band or Kieran. The deck will now do well against something like Raging Bolt Ogerpon, but struggle against Dragapult EX because most of the Pokemon have low HP. Galvantula and Tapu Bulu are disappointing. They can both one-shot a Charizard EX, and Tapu Bulu can one-shot a lot of basic 2-prizers, but the energy is awkward. Galvantula needs a Grass and Lightning, plus their active has to have an ability to deal 180 damage. Tapu Bulu needs 2 Grass and 2 Colorless to deal 220. Yeah, you can chuck them in a Lost Box deck and Mirage Gate the energy to them, or use a Reversal Energy on Galvantula, but neither seem like they'll shake anything up. Moving to the fire Pokemon, we have Iron Moth, which has an evil twin brother in Slitherwang. The future and ancient support is slow to a trickle, but these two are trying to keep it alive. Keyword being try. I think Iron Moth is a pass. Yeah, it can make itself immune to attacks from ancient Pokemon, single-handedly able to beat the Roaring Moon Ancient deck, but it requires 3 energy, 2 of which are fire. If the Ancient Box deck ever becomes Tier 1 though, this will see play, otherwise nah. Slitherwing has a sliver of a chance of seeing play. Lost Box decks looking for a way to deal with Iron Hands EX just need to play 1 copy. Now you have a single prizer who can one-shot an Iron Hands EX for a fighting and a colorless. Outside of the future Iron Hands deck though, it kinda sucks. So yes, future and ancient support is continuing, no they aren't groundbreaking. Something you should get excited about is Kingdra EX. We'll have to wait and see if this is a better archetype than Chen-Pao Baxcalibur, but the potential is there. Stage 2, Kingdra EX puts up to 3 water Pokemon from your discard pile directly onto your bench. While not as broken as Archie's Ace in the Hole, it simply allows you to put 3 water Pokemon from your discard pile onto your bench for a single energy. Obviously, the Pokemon you'll be getting most of the time is Baxcalibur. That's because Kingdra's attack does 50 more damage for each water energy attached to it. So you can forego the Frigibax entirely and do everything in your power to get a turn 2 Kingdra EX, and now you have a strong board. Unfortunately, it does kinda seem like a worse Lugia V-Star, no? It's a stage 2 instead of a stage 1, and every Lugia player knows how difficult it can be to get those Archeops in the discard pile. Except Kingdra will want to play Irida instead of a discard supporter. I have excitement for Kingdra, but I'm also fully expecting disappointment. Speaking of disappointment, Weavile's just a worse Articuno. It's a stage 1, and you have to discard the energy, whereas Articuno simply damages itself. Then we come to the one and only Terra Pokemon EX in Shrouded Fable, Reverum EX. A lightning type, which means it hits Lugia V-Star for weakness, the first attack does 140 damage for a metal energy if it moved from the bench to the active spot. That's fine. It has a 1 retreat cost so you can load up your deck with Rescue Board. Then there's Speed Break. For 3 metal energy it does 250 damage, but you have to discard all the energy and the Reverum. Maybe you could pair it with Metang and Mimikyu and Rescue Board and Bastille Legion, but at that point isn't it just a worse Palafin EX? For the Psychic Pokemon, one of these 3 is potentially playable. Can you guess which one? No, it's not the Hypno. Even though it's a cool effect, ending their turn if they attach an energy to the defending Pokemon next turn, it's easily broken by retreating, switching, or evolving. And something like Charizard EX accelerates energy from the deck, not from hand. And Sylveon is a coin flip, so that's bad. No, it's Cresselia. Pairable with Gardevoir EX or Xatu, it does 160 damage for 3 energy and flips over one of your prize cards. I don't know if Guardy players will bother, but it can help knowing which prize cards to take and which not to take. But those are the boring psychic Pokemon in Shrouded Fable. Here's the interesting ones. The Dusclops can knock itself out and put 5 damage counters on any one of your opponent's Pokemon. The Dusknoir can also knock itself out, except it puts 13 damage counters on any one of your opponent's Pokemon. Okay, I said interesting, not good. If they were able to spread the damage counters anywhere, they'd be a lot better. Still, being able to snipe damage counters can be useful, maybe. This also allows you to KO one of your Pokemon on your turn, activating Counter Catcher and Defiance Band in the process while simultaneously powering up Iono. I personally think the self-KO power of Forretress EX is better, mostly because Dusknoir is a stage 2, but maybe Greninja EX can use it for shenanigans? Remember Galarian Zapdos? Blood Moon Ursaluna is basically that, except with a much stronger attack. Slap the Ursaluna onto your bench, attach up to 2 fighting energy from your hand to it. Then Mad Mud Bite does 100 base damage plus 30 more for each damage counter on your opponent's active. Pair it with Frostlass and Radiant Alakazam, you can be dealing a good chunk of damage every turn. Or put it in with Blissey EX and fix the issues you have with getting energy into play. It's definitely a solid card. Toxicroak isn't, it's simply okay. Sure, you can one-shot any evolution Pokemon weak to fighting, but against a basic heavy deck like Raging Ogerpon, you'll struggle mightily. And unless you play something like Grant or Kieran or Defiance Band or Maximum Belt to boost the 90 base damage, you'll have trouble against any Lightning deck running Iron Hands EX because it gets destroyed by Ampu very much. Though, the more I think about it, no, I can't. I've been screwed in the past by single price stage 1s who deal 160 to 180 damage. Never again. I mean, when's the last time you actually saw a good stage 1 deck based around a card like Toxicroak? If we still had the old Zoroark in Standard, this new Zoroark would slot perfectly into a stage 1 toolbox deck. Unfortunately, it rotated earlier this year. Harkening back to Golisopod, Zoroark does 60 damage for each of your opponent's Pokemon EX and V in play. If they reprinted Mew VMAX, it would be nutso. Since they won't be doing that, it's something that can do well against future Iron Hands, Raging Bolt Ogerpon, and Miraidon EX, as well as inexperienced Charizard EX players, though against that future Iron Hands deck, Zoroark will get destroyed by MP very much. But it's not great against Gardevoir, Dragapult, Chien-Pao, Lugia, and any deck that can limit the number of 2 prizers to 1 or 2, and I don't think the Flute can save it either. On a recent stream, I messed around with Frostlass Spread. One used Spinda to deal 10 damage to all of their Pokemon, while another used Mismagius to spread 2 damage counters. The new Yveltal is another candidate for this archetype. It puts 2 damage counters on each of your opponent's Pokemon that has a damage counter on it, all for a Darkness Energy. That's important because Monkey Dory needs to have a Darkness Energy on it to use its ability. So you can start with Spinda, put 10 damage on everybody, then use Yveltal, Monkey Dory, Frostlass, and even Radiant Alakazam to move damage counters around, and maybe somehow win? With the return of Apex, we need a way to turn them off. Shrouded Fable's Genesect allows you to do just that, similar to Spiritomb from back in the day. If Genesect has a tool attached to it, notably it has a 1 retreat cost making it a rescue board target, then your opponent can't play any Ace-Spec cards from their hand. Obviously there's ways around this with Lost Vacuum, but if you always lose to their Prime Catcher or Neo Upper Energy or Unfair Stamp, well now you don't. One of the cards I'm most excited for is Kyurem. Before you go judging it, just read the attack. It does 110 damage to 3 of your opponent's Pokemon. That's insane! Okay, now read the rest of the cards. 5 energy is rough, so is discarding all the energy. But the ability makes it cost just a single colorless energy, provided they have either Colress's Experiment or the new Colress's Tenacity in their discard pile. Colress's Tenacity is a new supporter that lets you search out a stadium and any energy, including special energy, making it the best way to manually search for both. Colress's Experiment will continue to see far more play though, so against Lost Zone decks, it's insane. And it can be used in Lost Zone decks thanks to Mirage Gate, though it really only pairs with Goodra V-Star builds. But the perfect partner is already available, Regidrago V-Star. Kyurem's a dragon, Regidrago copies the attack of any dragon. Yes, you'll still have to discard the energy attached to Regidrago, but Kyurem offers up the chance at a potential 6 prize turn to close out the game. Haxorus is another blast from the past. Just like the Single Strike Beedrill, it one-shots their active if it has a special energy attached. Unlike Beedrill, which tasted great with mustard, Haxorus really only pairs well with, you guessed it, Regidrago V-Star. This just gives you an easy attack to deal with a Lugia V-Star or a Dragapult EX with a Neo Upper Energy attached. Despite how awesome Beware's illustration rare is, the card sucks, and that's it for this section of the video, but we're not done. Up until this point, nothing's really mattered. That's all about to change. The whole purpose of Shrouded Fable is to highlight the Loyal 3 and Pecharunt. If, like me, you haven't played the DLC for Scarlet and Violet, none of those words will make sense. Basically, Shrouded Fable is focused on Pecharunt EX, Okidogi EX, Pheasantipity EX, and Monkey Dory EX, with the first two featuring an affinity for poison. Pecharunt is fairly weak with just 190 hit points, but its ability means your Dark deck will never lose to Snorlax Stall. Once during your turn, you can put one of your bench Darkness Pokemon into the active spot, though it will be poisoned. That's a good thing for Okidogi EX, which does 260 damage if it's poisoned. Okidogi seems kinda nuts, right? A 250 hit point basic, it can wear a Bravery Charm. The first attack accelerates 2 energy and poisons itself, and the second attack deals either 130 or 260 damage. Oh, and if it's late in the game, Pecharunt can deal 300 damage for 2 energy. But Pecharunt EX might not even be the best partner for Okidogi. Pair it with the Brute Bonnet Radiant Sneasler combo, and you can all but guarantee poison every single turn while also poisoning their active. And the new Binding Mochi tool card boosts the damage poison Pokemon deal by 40. If you thought that was the end of the synergy, think again. Janine's Secret Technique is a new supporter that accelerates 2 darkness energy from your deck to 2 of your darkness Pokemon. And if one of those Pokemon is your active, it gets poisoned, further removing the need for Pecharunt. Basically, Janine's Secret Technique is Professor Sada's Vitality for dark Pokemon, except it doesn't draw you cards. We'll have to wait and see how Okidogi shapes up when Japanese tournaments for Shrouded Fable begin next week, but it seems good. Oh, and even if you put 4 Binding Mochi on a Honchkrow V, it still sucks. Looking at the other Loyal 3, Pheasantipity is just Oricorio GX Reborn. If any of your Pokemon were knocked out during your opponent's last turn, you draw 3 cards. Oricorio did see play in the Baby Blacephalon deck back in the day, so don't overlook it even if it is a 2-prize liability. Then there's Monkey Dory EX. I'm not high on this card at all. Yes, if you have Pecharunt EX in play, it only gives up 1 prize card, but they can just target your Pecharunt instead. And 3 energy for 190 damage isn't awesome. Neither is the fact that Monkey Dory's ability only activates if it's knocked out by damage from an attack. So if a Sableye or a Dragapult EX uses damage counters to knock it out, they still get 2 prizes. While a lot of the Pokemon outside of the Loyal 3 aren't terribly interesting, the trainers are. Let's start with Xerosic Steam. Everyone on Twitter told me I was wrong when I said this made Control better. In fact, it makes Control worse, because now they can't have 20 card hands. Yes, Xerosic forces your opponent to discard their hand until they have 3 cards left. Play this on your first turn going second, they have 3 cards on their second turn. Unlike Hand Trimmer, which also targets you, Xerosic just affects them. I still stand by my assertion that Xerosic helps control decks, I just think control decks will have to adapt a little. Oh, and the new Malamar pairs with it. Play Xerosic, and for a single Darkness Energy, Malamar can bring any one of their bench Pokemon into the active and deal 120 damage to it. Seems kinda meh. Another Pokemon that combos with a new supporter is Crobat. If you played Janine's Secret Technique, Crobat can drop to 8 cards in hand. Problem is, it's a stage 2. While I vaguely understand that 8 is a bigger number than 6, the Beautifly hasn't seen any play outside a Torterra deck, mainly because of Bibarel. And if you don't play Janine, Crobat is kind of a useless Pokemon. While it's definitely a card to keep in mind, especially because the Critical Bite Crobat is still in Standard, I'd put it low on the radar for now. It's not a stretch to say this next card will see some play. Taking the first effect of Guardians Rising's Rescue Stretcher and expanding upon it, Nightly Stretcher allows you to put either a Pokemon or basic energy from your discard pile into your hand. Obviously, Super Rod is a better card overall, but being able to just immediately get whatever Pokemon you want back from the discard pile can't be ignored. I was originally excited for this card, but then my Twitch chat told me I'm handsome and they wish they could give me more money. Also that I'm wrong. At the end of your turn, if Power Hourglass is attached to your active Pokemon, you can attach a basic energy from your discard pile to it. Getting the combo to work seems easy. Go first, use Radiant Greninja to discard an energy, then end your turn using Rotom V's ability. Not only do you draw 3 cards, but your active gets an energy. Obviously your active can get knocked out on their turn, but if you put Experience Share in the deck, maybe it's not so bad? I don't know. Don't forget that I thought Energy Sticker was a playable card. For our penultimate trainer card, we have Cassiopeia, which is kind of a spoiler for the games if you haven't played them yet, so oopsie. Kind of similar to Peony, but not really. If Cassie is the last card in your hand, you can go and get any 2 cards from your deck. There is something like Hisui and Arcanine who wants to have 0 cards in hand, but you can put Cassie into item-heavy basic decks to get things like Electric Generator. Though you can kind of already get 2 Electric Generators with Arven and Flora Sealstone, still it's a supporter with a chance to see play. And finally, Nighttime Academy. The whacking off potential is high here. The knee-jerk reaction is to pair it with Chansey and Arsephone to maybe cheese some prizes, or to play it with Magcargo EX to guarantee 280 damage, which honestly seems kinda good. But realistically, we'll see it played far more boringly. Before you end your turn, you can put any card you want on top of your deck. So if your opponent Ionos you, guess what? The card you want comes back. Or for Electric Generator and Metang, you can put an energy on top of your deck to guarantee an acceleration. And unless I'm an idiot, Nighttime Academy stops you from ever decking out. I'm sure stall and control decks won't use that fact to their advantage. There's 3 ace specs in Shrouded Fable, and hoo boy do they suck. Okay, well 2 of them suck, and not toes. Dangerous Laser is basically just a worse hypnotoxic laser from the black and white era, burning and confusing your opponent's active. Yeah, you could pair it with Iron Valiant EX and Brute Bonnet and try to make a Donk deck, but that's about it. As for Pokevital A, it's as good as Gold Potion was back in the day. And Gold Potion wasn't good back in the day. Heal 150 damage from one of your Pokemon, then never be able to use it again. This is just worse than Hero's Cape. If we ever get Pokevital B though, and they can somehow combo together, maybe? Until then, it's trash. The third and final ace spec is Neutral Center. Basically, it's a stadium that applies Mimikyu's ability to all non-rulebox Pokemon. That's good on paper, but then you read that it can't be recovered with Silene or Roseanne's backup, and you realize it's not awesome. But there is a potential partner in the new Copperajah. If it's in the active, they can't play stadiums from their hand. So now Neutral Center can only be bumped by Lost Vacuum or gusting somebody else into the active. If you run Airy or Misfortune Sisters for Lost Vacuum, you could potentially make a 200 hit point decent attacker immune to damage from VNEXs. It's a convoluted combo, but if it works, you'll win a lot of games. Based on my early perusing, without any factual data from Japan, these are my top 10 cards in Shrouded Fable you should be paying attention to. I'm sure all of these picks will age more gracefully than my ex-wife, but if you disagree, sound off in the comments. Overall, I'd say Shrouded Fable won't shake up the meta in a crazy way, which is to be expected from a special set with less than 100 cards. It's nowhere near as bad as Champion's Path though, and will definitely introduce a few new decks. Night Wanderer is out in Japan on June 7th, and if anything crazy pops up, I'll post some overview videos.